This is your host Harry speaking, and welcome back to my weekly podcast again. So, for this week, I want to talk about the importance of the immigrants, especially the Chinese, and their involvements to develop America during the 18th century. The reason I chose this topic is simply because of the recent crackdowns on immigrants done by the new US administration are not so reasonable at all. So I think it is important to know a little history about the Chinese immigrants. Chinese immigration to America began in the mid 19th century. Chinese labor was recruited in large numbers to help US complete the coast-to-coast railway connecting the East Coast and the West Coast. In 1869, the railroad was completed, but the Chinese workers were not recognized for their efforts in building the railway, and the economic crisis began in some parts of the US at the same time. Even in the diverse places like Los Angeles, the Chinese were racially discriminated by the whites, so the Chinese people were united to protect their communities. The late 18th century was probably the years that the Chinese were suppressed the most. President Chester A. Arthur signed the Chinese Exclusion Act in 1882 after a decade of racist violence against Asian Americans. It was no longer legal for Chinese workers to come to America, and for the Chinese nationals who were already in the US, they can never become American citizens. It was an act that excluded a whole class of race, and it is the first and the only time that the United States government has ever banned a singled out race from the country. The Chinese organized and fought for their rights until the Chinese Exclusion Act was removed in 1943, and this Exclusion Act lasted for 60 years. So, since I have given a background on the racial exclusion of Chinese, I want to go on with an ugly event that took place against the Chinese people. On September 2nd, 1885, all the white workers in Rock Springs, Wyoming stopped working and they united to form a mob, like a gang. The Chinese workers were attacked by the white men with murderous weapons and firearms. Some Chinese men were robbed by the whites, and some would be beaten until death. And the rest of the white people who didn't participate in all these aggressive actions would cheer from the sidelines. All the Chinese huts were burnt down, and the dead bodies of the Chinamen were thrown into the burning buildings. The death toll was 28, and a total of 15 were injured. All of them were Chinese. This event took place over a century ago, but recently not only Chinese but all the immigrants that came from different backgrounds are getting oppressed by the new administration. The conservative Americans are forming a hatred towards the colored people, no matter what their status is in the United States. This kind of issue is not only occurring in the United States. People of United Kingdom have also started protests against British immigration laws. So these Western countries have come to thinking that immigrants does not benefit them at all. However, it is crucial for Americans and the colored people, especially the Asian Americans, to know their history well. They must know how their ancestors suffered due to racism. The new generations of Americans should also realize that immigrants built America and they are also descendants of immigrants. It is important to know that the land of liberty once excluded a whole class of people from existing in the country. However, American has developed and changed since. But now it is worrying to see the beginning of restricting immigration laws and law enforcement tracking the immigrants down using heavy forces. However, I believe that people of the United States can still avoid the bad history repeating again because this is the land of democracy. That's all for today. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you.